It is a proven fact. You're just going to be disappointed at times when you play the game of fantasy football, but doing things that constantly disappoint you is just plain stupid. Now, we talk a lot on this channel about how much things change during the NFL offseason. But if players are constantly disappointing you and things are lining up to be the same in 2025 that they were in 2024 or 2023, I'm not going to draft those players and let them disappoint me again. That's why in today's show, I'm revealing 4 players that I am just sick of drafting and why in fantasy football. Now, before we get into the list of players here in today's show, I do need to preface it by saying this. Just because I'm sick of drafting a player, or maybe you're sick of drafting a certain player in your fantasy football league, that does not mean that that player is completely undraftable. At some point, every player in every draft becomes worth the risk. It's all about getting those guys late enough that you don't have to assume any of the risk that comes along with them. Now, maybe you're out there saying, I play Dynasty and I play Redraft, and there's just so much information. I don't know what all I need to become absolutely dominant in fantasy football. Well, don't worry, I got you covered. Now, the easy first step is just by hitting the subscribe button. We drop videos all year long to give you great information to draft great players. Then once the season starts, you know we got you covered with those rankings and start-sit decisions. But we also have a ton of information in our 2025 Fantasy Football Draft Guide, which is available for pre-order right now. And all you need to do to get that is head over to tfhdraftguide.com and get yours pre-ordered right now. Tons of information, and maybe you're out there watching this video right now and you've purchased the draft guide before. Leave a comment down below. Let people know what you thought. Not only does it help support the channel, it helps you walk away with more fantasy football trophies. But all right, let's talk about a few guys that I'm just kind of sick of in fantasy football. For example, let me start off with a big name. One of the best players in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes. And no, I'm not some Patrick Mahomes hater, but he's currently the quarterback 7 in consensus rankings. Now, despite being a great quarterback, his numbers have now declined for multiple years. Last year, didn't even break 4,000 yards passing for the first time as a starter in Kansas City. And he only threw for 26 touchdowns. That total right there, that was the lowest amount of touchdowns he's thrown in a season since his injury-shortened season in 2019, where he missed 2 games. He finished 2024 with 9 games under 17 fantasy points scored, and that is an absolute killer from the quarterback position in fantasy football. And I say that because you're drafting him so highly, you expect bigger points more consistently at that position. Now we get to 2025, and his teammates, they just can't seem to stay out of trouble. Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy have both had off-field issues. Now DeAndre Hopkins, he's gone. He's in Baltimore. Not a huge loss. He wasn't a huge part of this offense. But we also know that Travis Kelce is basically old and washed at this point when it comes to regular season games. They're not going to give him a full workload like we've seen in years past. So once again, things are lining up for people to assume that Patrick Mahomes can go out there and put up huge numbers with potentially less weapons. Now, Mahomes barely snuck into the top 12 quarterbacks on the season last year. And early in this offseason, like I mentioned, he's already the consensus QB7 overall. That's almost a 40-point difference. Now, can he score 40 more points this year? Sure. But do I want to pay the higher price tag and just hope he has people to throw to all year long? Not really. It actually sounds a little bit crazy, but I would rather wait a little bit later in my drafts and take a chance on a guy like maybe Bo Nix, Jared Goff, or maybe, and this even pains me to say, Caleb Williams. We've just seen this trend over the last couple of years, huge offseason expectations because Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback, but when it comes to fantasy football, if we're being honest with ourselves, he's been a little bit of a disappointment here for a couple of years. So if I take a bird's eye view of 2025 and I see a lot of similarities, it's one of the reasons why I'm sick of drafting Patrick Mahomes in fantasy football. All right, how about a running back? Let's do Breece Hall of the New York Jets. Currently, the consensus RB12 overall. Now, I am on record as being a quote-unquote Breece Hall truther, but one thing I'm not a believer in is this New York Jets organization as a whole. Now, you may just look at high-level stats and say, Jake, what are you even talking about, dude? He had 1,359 total yards and 8 touchdowns just last year. Cool. Cool story, bro. He still finished as the RB17 on the year and had 6 games under double-digit points. In fact, almost 25% of his season-long scoring production came in just 2 games last year. Now we fast forward to 2025. Justin Fields is in the backfield, and he isn't opposed to throwing to his running backs, which is great. But what he is opposed to is giving up all those goal line touchdowns. There's a chance that Breece Hall loses some of those goal line touchdowns with Justin Fields under center. We then add in the fact that Braylon Allen in this backfield last year also saw considerable usage and could once again see that in 2025. How about the fact that the Jets are always finding a way to suck? Meaning they're trailing more games than not, and they're not able to run the football with a lead. Now, because of that, the volume consistently is all over the place in this backfield. This really has more to do with the Jets just being the Jets and a constant letdown than any sort of knock on Breece Hall. Plus, the running back position is deeper than it has been in fantasy football in quite some time. When you look at some of the running backs that could be drafted after Breece Hall, I get a little bit more excited. Guys like James Cook, heck, even Alvin Kamara, and maybe even in 2025, this may catch some of you off guard, Najee Harris, who's now a member of the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, being a Breece Hall truther, this one absolutely pains me. But the Jets got to figure something out because they have too much talent to be as bad as they are every single year. How about a ball catcher? Let's talk about Chris Olave of the New Orleans Saints. He's currently the wide receiver 25 overall in the consensus rankings. And this one, once again, this isn't a talent issue. It's a health and quarterback situation issue. 3 seasons in the league and he's never played a full season. He just cannot stay healthy. And now he's starting to rack up concussions and missed a large portion of the 2024 season because of it. Derek Carr is constantly putting him at risk of taking a big hit. Now, I do love the change at head coach. Kellen Moore now comes to New Orleans. He's been an offensive coordinator for years. He's been in Dallas. He's been in LA. He was most recently in Philadelphia and won a championship. However, he is still a rookie head coach in the NFL, and he really doesn't have a lot to work with when we look at the overall Saints roster. Now, they did just bring in Brandon Cooks. Not a huge signing, but something. They needed something. But let's not forget about Rashid Shaheed either. At the start of the 2024 season, Rashid Shaheed was the guy in the passing offense that was more consistent than anyone else in New Orleans. A lot of people just forget about it because we lost him for a big chunk of the season due to injury. He should be back. He should be healthy. Now, if you were here last year, you heard us talk about Rashid Shaheed a lot. And I'm probably going to talk about him a lot once again this year. I like him more than Chris Olave. Not a talent thing. This one is all about value. You can draft Rashid Shaheed a lot later and get similar production. And I know I wasn't the only one last year that saw how many deep looks we were seeing consistently go down the field to Rashid Shaheed. He can score you points in bunches. Now, Chris Olave will be cheaper this year than he has been in years past. But at that point, let me just take a risk on a high upside gamble on a player that's in a better overall offense. Give me guys after Chris Olave like Jameson Williams, even Deebo Samuel in Washington this year, or maybe even a rookie like Tet McMillan. Either way, the expectations for years have been there for Chris Olave, and it's been a constant disappointment, and I don't see anything in 2025 that tells me that is 100% going to turn around, which means he falls here on my list of players I'm sick of drafting. Which only leaves us a tight end, the football kind. It's Dallas Goedert of the Philadelphia Eagles, currently the tight end 12 overall. And no, I'm not going to call him Dallas Goedert because right now his name does not make me feel fancy. It's crazy to me that over the last 3 years, Goedert doesn't have more than 700 yards in a season or more than 3 touchdowns in a season. Yet, every year, he's drafted up inside the top 12 tight ends in fantasy football. People start him weekly when he's healthy, and he can barely even get you close to 8 fantasy points per game. The offense in Philadelphia has started to throw the ball less and less and will continue to throw the ball less with a backfield of Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts under center. When A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are on the field, Dallas Goedert is more of an afterthought. We've seen it consistently. Now, Goedert hasn't finished inside the the top 12 at the position in 3 years. Yet, once again, heading into 2025, do you want to guess who's ranked up inside the top 12 tight ends? Yes, it's Dallas Goedert. Now, we all know that the tight end position isn't the deepest, but there are more options in 2025 than we've had in quite some time. A lot of the tight ends at this point of the draft are kind of a crapshoot, so I get it. But we know what to expect from Dallas Goedert in Philadelphia. It's already known. And if it's known to not be the best, why not take a chance on a guy with potentially more opportunity in his offense? Can we find more targets somewhere? Guys like Zach Ertz in Washington. How about Jake Ferguson in Dallas? He should be back and healthy. And even a guy like Brenton Strange, who could be a big-time sleeper in Jacksonville this season. Now, I get it. The Philadelphia Eagles are a great team. They're a high-powered offense at times. You want a piece of that. Dallas Goedert, though, just isn't a consistent enough piece to rely upon, and for that reason, he falls onto the list of players I'm just sick of drafting. So, all right, there you have it. 4 guys, 1 quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end that as of right now, I'm just sick of drafting in fantasy football. But this is where it gets a little bit fun. I like to actually interact with the community. So leave me a comment down below. Which player are you just sick of drafting in fantasy football? Now, if I see things a little bit different for that player this year, I'll let you know. I'll give you some nuggets, but maybe I'm on board with you, and it's probably a guy that we just avoid altogether in 2025. Now, if you haven't already, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of the content that we drop here over the rest of the year. And then if you could do me one last favor, hit the like button if you haven't already. It's free, it's easy to do, and it helps us out here on YouTube. But I'm going to go ahead and get out for the day. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of your day, and then most importantly, do your part to make the world a better place.